Nissan Z Nismo is a unicorn by virtue of its styling, its performance, and the fact that you really don't see these cars anywhere. It's a beautiful, retro-modern ode to Z cars of Nissan's past, and it manages to not just look great, it drives great too. But where are all of the Z Nismos? Why don't we talk about them as much as we do other sports cars? And is that a bad thing or a good one? Let's find out.
This is the 2024 Nissan Z Nismo, and I'm Alanis King. Let's go for a drive and stick around for the end of this video to get this Z's full report card.
The Z name has always been special. Its lineage began with the Datsun 240Z in the 1960s and 70s, a timeless two-door with conical headlights and side mirrors mounted halfway down the hood. As the years and new Z models went by, the numbers in their names got bigger. Nissan and Datsun, which eventually just became Nissan proper, subsequently introduced cars like the 260Z, 280Z, 280ZX, 300ZX, 350Z, and 370Z, the oldest of which are now high-priced collectibles. The most recent Z car before the new one debuted in 2021 was the 370Z, which had been around since 2008. The 370Z was an actual teenager, and new cars, like most technologies, aren't supposed to be teenagers. That meant the new Z's arrival was a big deal. In mid-2020, Nissan unveiled the Z Proto, a concept car previewing the new Z. It was highlighter yellow with matching brake calipers, and it was beautiful. The production-ready counterparts of concept cars are usually way less beautiful and way less daring, but not the Z. When the production version debuted in 2021, it was just as much of a head-turner.
We, as car enthusiasts and industry professionals, speculated about the new Z for a long time. We figured it would be called the 400Z because, the names keep going up in the Z lineup, and that it would have 400 horsepower. But when the new Z debuted, it did so with no numbers. It was just the Z, and it came with a 400 horsepower twin turbocharged V6 engine and the choice of a 6-speed manual or a 9-speed automatic transmission on the regular car. But this isn't just a regular Z. This is a Z Nismo. Nismo stands for Nissan Motorsports, if you get it, Nismo, yeah. And this is the hardcore version in a Nissan lineup. The Z Nismo is naturally a step up in power from the regular Z, and this 3-liter twin turbocharged V6 makes 420 horsepower and 384 pound-feet of torque. A couple of cool things about this engine bay is that we have this big old strut tower brace for stiffness. We have a physical dipstick, which is not the case on all modern cars, and it's really tight in here. So if you're working on this car, I hope you have very small hands. All this power goes through a 9-speed automatic transmission to the rear wheels because unlike the regular Z, the Nismo does not have a manual transmission. Ouch. You might think the styling of this car is revolutionary, but it's actually evolutionary because it combines a bunch of iconic features from Z cars past to make this really cool retro modern styling. The callbacks began with the Concept Z's yellow paint, which refers to an original Z paint color chosen by the father of the Datsun Z, Yutaka Katayama. He chose the color because it was a good contrast with the blue skies. The new Z's side profile comes from the first generation of the car. We start with this pointed nose, and then we have a long hood that goes into a sloping roofline, and then it squares off at the back. And also back here, we have a small ducktail spoiler, which refers to the ones tuners added to the original Z. This Z also models itself after the original Z's scooped out headlight look and hood bulge, which raises up and creases along the elevation. The regular Z has a squared-off grille that calls back to the original Z and the 350Z. And if you look inside this squared-off grille, there are long ovular shapes that represent the taillights on the Z32 300ZX. The Z Nismo gets some changes though. We don't have that harsh squared-off grille right here. It actually extends further. And I think it looks way better extending the grille out. So if you get a regular Z, just replace the bumper. The taillights also get that long ovular shape, which match both the Z32 and the front end of this car. The styling and location of the Z logo back here matches the one on the first generation S30Z. Inside, these 3 gauges, which show turbo speed, boost pressure, and voltage, are a very common feature in past Z cars. And in case you're at automotive trivia night and you need a little flashcard, the Z's rear window glass says, "Since 1969, the year the Z's heritage began." Nice. And do you know what has me styling just like this Z? Home field apparel. It's college football season at Home Field, which means you can get cool shirts just like this Bevo Texas Longhorns one I'm wearing, or any of their motorsports merch. And you can get it 15% off with code Atlantis24 at homefieldapparel.com. This new Z isn't just shiny and new. It shares a bond with Z cars of years past. And I think that's really cool. When automakers make a good car and then they self-reference that car for years to come, not only does it bring the things we love into the future, it also brings the car into the future, while preserving all the parts that made it great. When the new Z debuted, we all loved the way it looked, and there's a reason for that, because it looked like what we knew, but newer. This Z Nismo starts at $64,990 American dollars, and it has 3 options on it. Those 3 options plus destination fees bring the total price of this car to $68,690. The first option is a $410 floor mat package, which puts Nismo branding on the floor mats. You also get a trunk mat, first aid kit, cargo net, and owner's manual cover. The next option is a $500 illuminated kick plate, which is cute. It lights up the Z in the door sill. The last option is $1,700 premium paint, and that is this 2-tone paint job with black on the roof and what Nissan calls passion red tri-coat on the rest of the car. And this is by far the best paint option on the Nismo Z, because with the Nismo Z, you only get a couple of options. You get black, white, gray, and red. And I will be honest, the black, white, and gray on the Nismo Z, they're beautiful. They're pearlescent and pretty, and they work really well with the Nismo branding. But they're also very conservative car colors in general, so if you're looking for fun, you gotta go red. Would I spec a Z Nismo with the options on this car? Yeah, I would. Ultimately, they cost $2,600, and $1,700 of that is in this paint, which you absolutely have to get anyway. So compared to the $65,000 starting price of this car, they're just a drop in the old bucket. It is now time for my favorite part of any car review, which is how many Atlantises can fit in this Nissan Z Nismo's trunk? And you would think I'm holding the key, so I'm gonna pop the trunk with the key, right? No. If you buy a Z Nismo, you get the same key everybody else gets. It's so cheap, and it doesn't have a trunk popper on it. So once I get in there, I'm kind of stuck. I can't pop myself out. What a concept. Let's hope the trunk is at least big enough for me. Uh-oh, this is high up here. Oh my goodness, I feel like I'm rock climbing. Okay. You can tell I don't practice this beforehand because I'm trying to figure out how to orient myself. Uh-oh. Oh, this is a solid one, Atlantis. No more than one. Definitely no more than one. It's time to drive the Nissan Z Nismo. And before we get into driving impressions, let's talk about the interior for a second. The interior of this car is fine. It's not great, but it's fine. There's a lot of dull black all around here, a lot of soft touch materials, which is not a bad thing. But the thing that gets me is that there's a lack of contrast in here. There's just black everywhere and it's dull. And so it ends up feeling a little dry and just not very fun to look around in. And we've seen a Z with a really good interior, and that is the blue interior on the regular Z. So I'm not really sure why Nissan didn't do a little more contrast in the Z Nismo, because it's totally possible and it makes this interior look good. The Z Nismo has a suede wheel, which is very, very popular in sports cars. And I like it. It feels nice to grip onto, but I know that if you had this car and you owned it, it would get kind of nasty, because that's what suede wheels do. There is a little bit of headroom in here, but not a lot. I'm 5'8.5", and I am not touching the roof, but I'm getting close to it. So if you're taller than me, or you want to have a helmet in here, it's gonna be a little bit of a squeeze. The good thing about the roof is that there is a wild amount of insulation up here. I'm in Texas, it's summer, it is extremely hot. And when I touch this roof, it's cool to the touch. So there's a lot of good insulation in here. There's also a lot of space in this car, whether you're in the driver's seat or the passenger seat, or you need storage room. If you sit in the passenger seat, you feel like you have a vast world in front of you in which to stretch your legs, and it's wonderful. And I think the thing about this being a modern car and being really big is that you have a lot of interior room for storage and passengers, because there are only 2 seats. You got places to put stuff on this back shelf. You've got places to put stuff in the hatch. You have room in here, and it's nice. Another thing about this Z Nismo is it's a fairly new car. It has a few thousand miles on it because it's in the press fleet, but there is a broken vent already. This driver's side center vent, it's fine, it'll stay in place, but there's supposed to be some tension when it goes up and down. And someone has fully knocked the tension out of this already, which is either a sign of whoever had the car or the vent itself. I'm not really sure. The backup camera in this car kind of reminds me of, not a Motorola Razr, but at one point I had an LG Shine when I was a kid. Like that era of camera. It does not look good. It looks like a potato, which it gets the job done, right? You can kind of see where you're going, but man, that backup camera is ugly. The seat adjustments in this Z Nismo are manual, which is very common in a sports car because it removes weight. If you have power seat adjustments, you have a heavier car. And if you have a performance car, you typically want your car to be lighter because power to weight is really important. The less weight and the more power you have, the better your car accelerates. So we have manual seat adjustments in here, and I don't mind that. I get in manual seat adjustments all the time. The problem with these manual seat adjustments is the seat back adjustment. The seat back adjustment, instead of being a lever you lift up and you move the seat up and down, it's this triangular turning thing, and it's really hard to turn, and it's way, way back there on the left side of the seat. And so when you find yourself needing to move the back of the seat, you're not only squeezing your hand in this small space, but you're turning really slowly, and it's really, really annoying. So not the best. Last comment about the seats. They're quite comfortable. I like them a lot, and I like that they're flat because it works well with my hair when I have my hair tied up. But if you shake these seats, they kind of move. They hold you in well when you're driving, but you don't want to just push on them or they'll wiggle back and forth, which is a little weird. Let's go, we're in Sport Plus mode, which is the big one. I tell you what, this car has 420 horsepower, which is just 20 more than the regular Z, and it feels great. It's enough power for out here. Maybe if you took this car to the track, it wouldn't be enough power. I'm not really sure. I haven't taken it to the track, but it's an absolute blast out here, and just going up through the shifts, it feels great. And you know what is so cool about this car? The sound. I took off earlier to go down this road, and I came back and my husband said, I could hear you for ever, because the exhaust in this thing, when you are on the gas, is ridiculous. So every single time I would come out of a corner and step on it, I would be forever away, and you could still hear it because it was so loud, and that's awesome. I mean, obviously you don't want your car to just wake up the neighbors all day, every day, so that's why you don't run it in Sport Plus all day, every day. But wow, is it cool to have a fast and loud and good-looking car. I have only driven the automatic Z. I've driven the regular Z in an automatic, and I've driven the Z Nismo, which has a 9-speed automatic as well. And you know what? This is a good automatic transmission. I mean, it just, those downshifts and those upshifts, it does exactly what you want it to do. And you know, people will be snobby. I will be snobby and say, yeah, I want a manual transmission because I want to do stuff myself because I'm better than everybody. But you know what? The harsh truth is, a good automatic transmission will almost always be better than you, unless you're Lewis Hamilton. A good automatic transmission will just nail those upshifts and nail those downshifts, and that's what this car does. So if you don't want a manual, if it's not just an absolute sticking point, this is a really good automatic, and it feels good. And I tell you, you're going through these corners, and it feels so evenly balanced, and the steering just, the steering isn't the most visceral communicative thing in the world, but it feels good, and it feels weighted up, and you just feel like there's a car underneath you, which is nice. Do I wish I could shift it myself? Yeah, I do. But is it doing a really good job? Absolutely it is. Another thing that's great about this car, aside from the fact that every time I put my big toe on the pedal, it wails, another thing that's really good about this car is the tires are really sticky. You go into these corners and you have a lot of confidence. This car feels good in the corners, honestly like the Toyota Supra, except it's more exciting than the Toyota Supra and really confidence inspiring. You feel good with this car, and you look good too, which is great. One more thing we're gonna do is a horn test. That sounds like a very normal horn, honestly. There's nothing crazy about it. There's nothing super intense about it, and there's nothing super weak about it. But the Z Nismo is really, really great. This is a fun car. It does what you want it to do. It actually does more than you want it to do. It's great at what it does. The problem is, on the spec sheet alone, the regular Z can compete. And that makes it a hard sell. Now that we've driven the 2024 Nissan Z Nismo, it's time to give it a grade. Welcome to Alanis's report card. The exterior on this car gets an A. Not only is it beautiful, but it has all of these callbacks to Z cars of the past. You will literally never run out of things to tell people when they're asking you about this car. The interior, on the other hand, gets a C+. It's fine, you can sit in it, but it's not particularly good, especially for $70,000. The performance on this car is an A-, and the only reason it has that minus on it is because it doesn't have a manual transmission. Aside from that, this car is absolutely amazing to drive. Then we go to the value, which I also give a C+, because this is an expensive car. It's $70,000. And what more do you get over the regular Z? Sure, some performance upgrades, but you also lose a lot of customization, and you lose that manual transmission. Would I take this car on a road trip? Yes, I have, several times, and it's great. I absolutely love it. And overall, the Z Nismo gets a B. There are some things it's really good at, and some things it needs to improve.
The Nissan Z Nismo is a wonderful car. It's styled beautifully. It drives beautifully. And when you're driving it around, its exhaust note tells everyone that something special is in the vicinity. The Z Nismo just has a few things holding it back from true greatness. The biggest is its lack of a manual transmission, because while the automatic is great, car enthusiasts have a tendency to not give even the best of automatics a chance. Its exterior and interior colors aren't nearly as customizable as a regular Z, and a starting price of $65,000 is a hard sell on any car, even if it's great.
I love that the Nissan Z Nismo exists. It drives well, it looks great, and it deserves our love as car enthusiasts. But the big drawback of the Z Nismo is that compared to the regular Z, you don't get that much more. And in some ways, you get a little bit less. You get 20 more horsepower, and you get some cool Nismo badges. But you get fewer paint options, fewer interior options, and the lack of a manual transmission. And for a lot of people, that's a big drawback. The Z Nismo isn't a slam dunk. It's more like a nice little layup.